So, hello everybody. Um, Today we are recording quite a special part of the Casino Guru News webinars, in which I'm going to be a host. The special because we wanted to take a bit different angle into the webinars and have sort of like a podcast environment and talking with the people from the industry who I work with and who are contributing to the overall situation in online gambling, whether it is connected with safer gambling or not. So we're gonna see how this is gonna work out for this pilot. So today I have with me James Mpiirwe, who is attorney at law coming from Uganda, Africa.
Yeah.
And I would like to fill up my role and introduce the guest properly.
Yeah.
So, to my understanding, James, your specialization is into the taxation, tax law, but also and especially gaming and betting law. So, you are a gaming and betting expert, and you work as a partner at EJ Sandegea
Yes.
and Associates Advocates.
Yeah.
So welcome in the studio, James.
Thank you, Shimon.
So if I said anything correctly, and please, if there is anything to add, please tell us more about your overall focus within the iGaming sphere.
Happy to. Thank you for having me, Shimon, and congratulations on the to Casino Guru and this new innovation, I guess. Congratulations! I think it's a brilliant idea, and it's a good way to go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what is it that you do?
Okay, as well introduced, my name is James Mpiirwe. I'm an attorney at law in Uganda. I am a partner, one of the founding partners of EJ Sandegea and Associates Advocates. That's a law firm in Uganda. We specialize in quite a few things, general practice really. But personally, I head the commercial department of the law firm, and thereafter, personally, I'm involved in taxation, gaming law, because again, that is for most of my employment experience was in gambling. So I head also the gaming department. We have quite a portfolio of clients that are involved in gaming, so I head that. And but again, also involved in I'm also involved in private consultancy with gaming companies. Again, mainly in the two areas, that's taxation and gambling, in particular responsible gaming. Yes, so I'm an advisor and a consultant for a few gaming firms, and so my roots are I still very intimately interact with gaming because of my history. Most of I have a very high affinity toward gambling because of my, my history with it. Yeah,
I see. So it's a very interesting career path, and also considering the location where you are practicing it. So I'm curious about what was your journey to it. So I know that you've been studying law, but basically, what was the transition for you to the, I guess, general law, because almost everybody starts at the general law. So what was your journey from the studying law and coming into a gaming law, and basically moving on with your career in an industry which is by many considered to be a vice, at least? So can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. I'm so glad you asked that. It's a perfect opportunity for me to tell my story, because I'd actually never gotten such an opportunity. But originally, when I joined university, or when I was going to university, so where I come from in Uganda, there is quite a number of universities, I might say, but there is one main one, It's called Mpiirwe University. It's a big university in Uganda and quite big across the world. But it's one of those places, if you don't go, then everyone who is anything in Uganda has been to that university. So joining that university, we, at the time, you have to really have performed very well at your advanced level high school, examinations. So I did not want to gamble very much. So law is one of the top rated courses at the university. So when I did my A-level exams, those my advanced level exams, which were just right before you get to get my high school diploma, I had quite different ambitions at the time. I wanted to be an artist. And I was toying with the idea. I didn't know what I really wanted. I wanted to be an artist. And again, it was one of an artist, yes. And that was one of the easy courses really to get admitted to at the university, especially for government sponsorship. So if you perform exceptionally well, the government gets to, you get a scholarship. Yeah, that's what we call government sponsorship. So I looked through the catalog of courses and the art appealed to me. So I went for that. But it's not something I discussed with my parents. So I went ahead and eventually I performed quite well, very well actually. And I was admitted for the course that I applied for. So I was admitted for Bachelor of Industrial Fine Art. And I was excited. It looked like a very simple course and I was in the university I wanted to be in. So everything was fine. So eventually I spoke to my mom about it. She said, "What do you mean you're going to do industrial fine art? What does that, what do you even become when you do that?" She said, "No, that's not happening." And I told her that's what I want to do and that's what I'm going to do. That's what I've been admitted for. She said, "Over her dead body." Now, when someone says yes, she said, "You're not doing that."
So she put it off the table.
She said, "You're not doing that. Go immediately and apply for change of course. You're not doing that. What do you even become? What is that?" So it was a lot of back and forth. We studied in semesters. It's a semester system. And so in a year, there are 2 semesters. So for almost the whole of the first semester, I was doing art. But my mom was all up and running. She got my sisters to come and apply to the university to change my course. And eventually I did. I was admitted. I knew they had admitted me, but I was so hesitant to cross over to the Faculty of Law. But, eventually reason prevailed. And I went to law school and I studied. Eventually, I became a lawyer. But even then, it never quite registered that it wasn't what I wanted. So after that, after doing my bachelor's, and graduating, I still didn't go to the bar course. I was admitted because it was an automatic admission to the bar course. After that, to the graduate school, which is the bar course. And I didn't still take up the admission. Instead, I packed my bags and went to England, to go and look for money and the different passions.
Indeed.
Yeah, but again, there was a calling, and maybe a year and a half or 2 later, I had to still go back home because I wasn't comfortable, I was too qualified I felt too qualified for the kind of work I was doing in England. So I eventually had an opportunity and I had thrown an application in the Ministry of Finance in Uganda and I got the job. So I came back home, but still hadn't done the bar course. So I started working with the Ministry of Finance in a department called Tax Policy.
Yes.
That is where, you do the tax planning and all that. That's responsible for tax planning and all that. And under Tax Policy Department is where gaming was. That was maybe about 2009 or thereabout. That's when I joined that department. Gaming was not a big deal in Uganda at the time. There was a law. There was some really old laws from 1968, some immediately post-colonial laws or something like that. It was not. There were operators in Uganda, but they were operating. It was grey. It was a grey market. There was no. The laws were in place, but they were extremely old and archaic, as you would imagine. One of the laws, which was the Lotteries and Pool Betting Act, Pool Betting Act, was 4 pages. It was really not anything to.
But we are talking about the physical gaming, right? Gaming, right?
Yes, the physical gaming. There were casinos. There were maybe about 2 casinos at the time in Uganda, and there was a few betting operators. But again, physical operators. There was no online at the time. Yes. Traditionally, Ministry of Finance was not employing lawyers. I think I was maybe just among the very first few to be employed there.
Yeah.
So when we interacted with the law, naturally, if you're a lawyer, you've looked at laws, you know that this is a very backward law. I was able to relate what was being implemented and what was going on in the market and what was written down. I said there's no relationship here. So I took a very particular interest, and my boss at the time, who was also a lawyer, encouraged me to take up interest in that department because I think they were seeing, potential of the industry growing. So I took it up. I made proposals to my bosses about reforming the law, and we started the process of reforming the law. And that's how the current Lotteries and Gaming Act comes in place.
That is quite a nice coincidence, right? Yeah. It can almost be said that you are one of the driving forces of the regulatory change in gaming, right?
I wouldn't dispute that. Yes, I wouldn't dispute that at all.
Yeah, but you were according to what you're saying, you were basically the force, the guy who did the job, right? Even though perhaps the decision was not coming from you directly, but you did the job.
Oh, yeah. And a few other people, because making a law and actually having a law passed by Parliament is quite a process. I might have started it. I contributed very, very much. If I used to put names on laws, I think my name would be first on the Lotteries and Gaming Act of Uganda right now. But that's not the case. And a lot. But we worked a lot. Getting the law and having it appreciated by the relevance of it, because there's a tendency for especially politicians and especially politicians with a moralist background. There's a tendency of not wanting to bring or to discuss anything, because then they get the feeling that they're being associated or they're promoting, even just discussing something which is adversely affecting society. They feel like, you're promoting it. So they shy away from it. It was a very, very long fight to have Parliament agree to discuss the Lotteries and Gaming Act, even though the gambling was going on and it was really time to reform the laws and bring all the issues that were affecting society related to gambling to the forefront. It was a very big war to have it discussed in Parliament, but eventually we did. That's why we started on the process in 2008, if I may, 2008 of reforming the laws. And I found so many attempts that had been made. We found so many consultants that had been hired to try and advise government on reforming the law, but it kept getting shut down. So it took a lot of push and determination to have Parliament agreed to discuss that law, and eventually in 2016 we had the law passed.
It is interesting what you're saying, because I think that it is the case for many countries in which the regulation is basically delayed or not in place, that the politicians are kind of afraid to be touching the subject as gambling. So would you say that this is the situation also in other African countries?
Yes, I would say so. Even some of the most, advanced jurisdictions, I would say legally, some of them really have very backward laws. Because we did, at the time, we had a lot of benchmarking studies to different African countries, to try and see the people who were within the same, the comparable legal frameworks, what they had. And we didn't find much. We went to Kenya, which is really, you would say it's somewhat advanced compared to a very advanced economy, and their legal framework is advanced. They didn't have much. Tanzania didn't have much. The only place we found some laws, was South Africa. And so we picked a little bit more from South Africa than we did from the other African countries. So yes, very many African countries are in a position that Uganda was in 15 years ago.
I'm interested about the regulatory landscape and the whole environment within gambling around African countries. So we would get to it, but I wanted to take a step back, and because you worked for the Ministry of Finance for some years, and then you went straight to being basically the attorney at the law and being a consultant, or was there anything between any?
There was a lot in between there, because now initially, because I was working as a public servant in the Ministry of Finance. Now, when we put the new law in place, it created a semi-autonomous parastatal, if I may. what is called the Lotteries and Gaming Regulatory Authority.
Yes.
So it created a semi-autonomous authority, and because I was the pioneer there, I was private, semi-private. Should I say semi-private? No, not semi-private. The government parastatals pay a little bit more than traditional public service.
Of course.
So for me, that was a little more attractive, but most importantly, I was working something that had grown a lot of passion, had gotten a very, very deep attachment to not just gaming, but the change that we had started moving. I was really, really attached to the change that we were putting in place. So when I was given the option, when it came to me choosing whether to stay in with the Ministry of Finance and the tax policy, or moving with the gaming board as now not a civil servant, it was a no-brainer. I moved with the authority, and so I worked with the authority from 2015, from the year 2015 all the way to about 2-3 years ago when I stopped working with the authority. And so when in there, I was heading board affairs. I was the head of legal and board affairs and compliance. So that as the person who was heading that department. So for all those years, that was my responsibility. And there was toward the end of my stay or my working at the gaming board, there was a restructuring. So I was moved from heading compliance, legal and board affairs to heading responsible gaming. So we established now a new department. Now we're in the actual implementation of the law. But again, we realized that there's some things that we had not given a little bit of focus, because after the industry gained prominence, now all of a sudden we started now appreciating the underlying issues, things like the social effect and the harm and all these other issues. So where the original structure that had been approved for the gaming board transitioned now. Now we realized that there was need for a responsible gaming, and the board established a responsible gaming department, which again I was given to head. And that was only for the last 2 years of my career there. And that's when I started now interacting, because previously I was working as a head of compliance. Now that I don't want to call it promotion, but you don't really quite concern yourself with the social effects of that, because you're focusing on tax, on whether people are licensed, whether people are meeting the requirements for licensing, whether the industry is licensed and all that. So you're a little bit kept away from the realities on the ground.
I see. You just cannot cover everything, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, there is only a certain scope of sight that you can have where you are focusing on the real work. And I think that in almost every area, then some things need to come before other things. And what is important to be catching up with all the important stuff.
Absolutely.
Right, yeah, so it's understandable. So the online gambling is now regulated in Uganda. How did this happen? What was the transition? Because there is quite a recent, for some countries recent, for some countries not that recent, the transition or the basically the journey from the regulated physical gambling to the online gambling. So can you tell me a little bit more about this particular path?
So, I mean, Uganda is still in that journey. We are still undergoing that journey. But like I said, for the most part of it, Uganda had most of the gambling there was land-based. And it still predominantly is, or to a bigger percentage, it still is land-based operations still a little bit dominate. But, with the advancement of technology and the increase, technology comes with the more effective ways of doing business, like cutting costs and all that. So it was just a matter of time before operators and the industry appreciated that it was cheaper to run online. So now they started that journey. But with the complications of internet and the costs associated with that, it took a little bit of time to pick up. But maybe I should say about 10 years ago, operators started moving. They started mooting the online operations alongside their land-based operations. And it is now a big deal. But it is still, the only difference is that we're still regulating. Uganda is still regulating land-based operations the same way it does online-based operations, even though there are substantial differences in the way the laws should be applied, because there is a lot that applies to land-based operations which may not necessarily apply to online gambling. So maybe I see a little bit of a gap there in the regulation, but we are there. They are right now as we speak, and I was consulting with the gaming board recently. I was told that 82% of the collections, of the revenue collections from the gaming sector, are coming from online operators. So that means, much less than 20% is what is being collected from the land-based. Much as if you go there, you physically see the sheer size of the of the land-based operations, you'd think that's why. But 82% of the revenue collections in Uganda coming from online operations.
Yeah, so yes. it is growing, and I know that. Africa is a big continent, and so do the states in Africa. So I've encountered with a lot of challenges connected with the state being divided into different districts, or basically, for example, like I think it's Nigeria, in where we have a federation, and each individual state has its own regulation for gambling. And I know that in Uganda it is divided as well. Yeah. Would you say? I'll ask in a different way. How that impacts or influence the creation of the gambling regulation and all the functions which are then applied for the whole state?
Okay, so for Uganda is a very small country. If you look at if you're to compare it with Nigeria and say South Africa, Uganda is not a federal state, so we have national laws as opposed to federal laws. But it's a good thing that I understand exactly what you're asking about. And if you look at Uganda, we have one national law which is applied across the whole nation and implemented. It might be implemented by the different local authorities, the district authorities, but the law is pretty much the same. It is set at the top, and it just cascades all the way down. Yeah. So that is not a challenge that we're exactly having. The implementation, since it's being parts of it are being implemented by the local authorities, might differ from slightly, but the law and the policy behind and the regulation is all uniform. But now, when you go to places like South Africa and Nigeria, they have where the federal system applies. They have state or provincial laws. Now, those can differ. I'll talk about South Africa because I'm most familiar with their law. They have a national framework, a national law, which sets the basic framework for all the provinces. Now, the provinces have flexibility on the different implementations or the intricate details of the law. They can create that. And you find that, for example, if you go to to KZN, KwaZulu-Natal province, you find that the general framework is pretty much the same, but it's completely different from another province that you've been to. Right. Yes. So, but again, these provinces are big. If you to compare some of the provinces, they're as big as countries.
States in Europe, right?
Yes. So there are variations there, and you go to South Africa. For example, if you go to South Africa, you find that in the Cape, toward the Cape province, they allow things from back then. They were allowing things like online gaming, which is not the case in some other provinces. So different laws and the different applications that are made by the different provinces quite differ. So you find things being allowed in some provinces and not being allowed in other provinces. Yes.
Indeed, yeah. I've mostly encountered with the issues in particular in Nigeria when I was discussing the self-exclusion there, that it was very difficult for them to establish a Nigerian-wide self-exclusion scheme because of the law being so fragmented into different states. But I guess it's very similar to a situation which is currently in US, in which no federal-wide self-exclusion system is on site. So let's talk a little bit more about Africa. And I heard you saying gambling, sometimes gaming, and we've been discussing it before, that there is a certain distinction or basically a preferred term which you have in Uganda in connection whether the game of chance, as gambling is referred to either gambling or gaming.
So in Uganda, Uganda is a most of our background is religious, really. So there's a lot of I want to say stigmatization of some aspects or some economic activities, and unfortunately, gaming is one of those. So biblically, if you look at the Bible, for example, what was referred to as gambling, it was a sin, or could have actually been interpreted as a sin. So that is traditionally that was the general interpretation of, or the general attachment of gaming or gambling in Uganda. That it is a sin. It is something that is done by rather immoral people. It's something that is associated with immorality. So when we started putting up the laws, traditionally, or the old laws, the post-colonial laws were referred to it as gambling. But it was something that was not as appealing. And remember, as the objective of putting new laws in place was to try and uplift it as something legal, because keeping it underground does not take away the harm that it was doing. It does not hide it. It's essentially just hiding your head under the sand. They can still see the whole body, really. So we knew that we needed to change the general view of it, and we tried to destigmatize the sector by changing the term. Taking it out from the biblical attachment of it being a vice or a sin to something that was a little more acceptable, something that is associated with the enjoyment, or potentially harmful but harmless, rather enjoyment and entertainment. And that's how we chose to use the word gaming and got rid of the gambling part of it, yes.
I'm asking because I would say that there is a big discussion between whether it should be referred as gambling or gaming. Some jurisdictions do it one way, some do it the other way. But talking about the challenges, basically the pros and cons of each, right? We were discussing it even during the past days, that really then referring to it as gaming could help you with destigmatization and basically with people engaging in the activity openly. But what is important on the other side is also that they are counting with the risks and they are reflecting them. So I would say that my I would be afraid that the one of the cons which comes with gaming is that you would be seeing it very lightly as the gaming could be, right? I mean, gaming meaning the game of skill, in which people can become addicted as well. And I remember when I was younger, I spent too much hours gaming. So but again, the threat or the consequences are quite different with one another. So I guess I mean, honestly, I'm not sure myself on which side in this discussion I should be standing, because then what really matters is how the people understand it. So if it's culturally acceptable, if it works culturally and societally, I'm not sure that's the right word. I think that it can work both ways, right?
For me, my take on because see, there's like I was saying that in Uganda the circumstances are completely different because of the religious background and the attachment that is made to the word gambling. But I see in other jurisdictions, for example, in England, gambling is gambling and is perceived exactly the way it is gambling. There's no over sentimentization of the term like it is in other jurisdictions. So personally, I think my take on that subject, and I know it is quite contentious and all, is that you need to study the societies that you're dealing with. It is very important. Both are valid points. When you say that calling it gaming is going to be oversimplification, that means it doesn't state what, especially in relation to responsible gaming and player protection and all that. You don't want to use a term which overly simplifies the matter or understates the potential harm that it could cause to anyone. But again, that is you have to be very careful to not ignore the intricacies or the peculiarities of the different jurisdictions. So I would say that depending on the jurisdiction you're dealing with, really you might want that it is taken. For Uganda, if you use it as gambling, you're going to hide a lot of things under the rug. You're going to sweep a lot of dirt under the rug. At least that one I know for sure. And that might apply for a few other countries where the sentiments are similar. If you call it gambling, you're going to stigmatize the whole industry. You're going to alienate very key players from participating in that. But if you call it gambling, it may not be an understatement as long as you're clear about what is encompassed under gaming. But again, for other industries, I see no harm. So I think both points are valid and they should be taken. They should just need to be an appreciation of the intricacies of the jurisdiction that they're applying to.
Would you say that this perception or understanding works throughout the continent, including other countries, Nigeria, Kenya, perhaps? Do you think that it is a typical thing for Uganda only, or if it applies to other states?
It's not typical for Uganda, and it's not just in Africa. It is in most places where, with that kind of background, the religious background, the religious and I guess a lot was carried, from our history of colonialism and all that. There are some things which are still taken a certain way because of the history of where we come from. But again, that does not affect places. I know that what affects Uganda, because Uganda's history is not too different from Tanzania's history and Kenya's history and a few other places in that region. It's not too different. So the sentiments are pretty much the same. In Uganda, gambling, in Uganda, Kenya, as it is in Tanzania, the sentiments are pretty much the same. But again, I've been to other places where it is not. For example, in Western Africa, gambling is gambling. It's not gaming. They don't attach that. The term gambling is not as stigmatized as it is in other places. So I would say that yes, in the region where we are, in the eastern part of Africa, it might be that way. But in other places, it's not.
What would you say are the biggest challenges of online gambling in the African region? And you can talk about Uganda or you can talk about other states, but I feel like there is a limited information which are coming from Africa regarding in what state online gambling is, right? I quite often see or hear very alarming news that the addiction rates are growing in African countries, that the channelization rates on the domestic players, if any, if basically the jurisdiction is regulated, and on the exploitation of the people from African countries, and basically exploitation of the small literacy of an understanding of how online gambling works. So what is your view on this? What are the biggest challenges?
One of the biggest challenges for online gaming in, I would say in most parts of Africa, Africa has its challenges, which really are not similar to, say, Europe and other places. There's We have challenges like low internet penetration.
Yes.
There's a challenge of again, simple things like, smartphones and all that. It's the penetration of that kind of technology, smartphones and iPads and computers is not as widespread as it is in a few other places like, say, America and Europe. But again, also there's a cost of the internet, the penetration. The internet might be there, but again, the costs that are associated with that infrastructure and all that is also not quite fair. Now is better than a few years ago, so it's getting better and it's getting cheaper every other day, and that's part of the reason why you see that the penetration of online gaming and the internet and all these things is really related.
Yeah.
The cheaper it becomes, the more it grows, as the deeper the penetration of the internet and smart devices or smartphones, the more the growth. So that the relationship is quite is symbiotic. The one is growing with the other. And actually, we did quite a study on that and saw that actually it was quite exact. The penetration of the internet and the relationship, it's a direct relationship, if I may, with the penetration of the internet and the growth in iGaming. Or if you go to some places most places where the penetration is higher, Uganda is a generally literate population. We have a somewhat educated population, probably one of the highest in Africa or the world, or something like that.
By the word literacy, I meant the understanding of how online gambling works and basically the understanding of the games of chance and what happens when there is a gambling activity.
That they understand. That's not a problem at all. But again, that too is related to literacy, general literacy, like being able to read and write, being able to use a smartphone. Because are you going to use a smartphone when you're not quite literate? And
no, yes, it will be difficult for you.
Yes, and you realize that if you go to places where the literacy levels are a little bit higher, and like say Uganda and Tanzania and Kenya, you find that the penetration is much higher, and that the association with the online gaming is a little bit higher. But I think across board, if I was to make a general statement about Africa, it is growing and it's getting better every single day. So it's just a matter of time. Like I told you, I last worked I left the gaming board in Uganda 3 years ago. By the time I left, we were collecting less than most of our revenue. 65% was land-based. Now it's coming to 3 years since I left, and 82% of the collections are from online gaming. So that means 82% of all online gaming activity in Uganda of all gambling activity in Uganda is online. So you can see that it's growing, and it's growing really, really fast.
Really fast.
Yeah.
It's hard to stop it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've never been to Africa before. But
you're missing out.
Yeah, it's on my bucket list. I see that there are more and more gambling-focused events, which are being organized in African states.
Yeah.
So perhaps I will have the opportunity sometimes next year to travel to one of these and to find out more about the African region and perhaps to look into areas in which other jurisdictions and regions can support people who are gambling in these areas. Yeah. I've seen some very interesting initiatives which were coming from the organizations from Europe or from US, basically improve the situation or positively influence the situation in Africa. Perhaps the last question on the African environment would be to focus on the safer and responsible gambling and the understanding of the gamblers on these procedures and not only the understanding but basically embracing them. So either if it is self-limiting tools or basically understanding that things can go south, but also the sphere of the infrastructure of support organizations if something would go wrong. And again, we can talk about Uganda or other states. Yeah. So what is your point on this? What do you feel like is the situation in this area?
Frankly speaking, And this is something that, again, that has driven me very close to safer gambling and responsible gaming. I did not appreciate the depth of harm, and if I may, the desperation of the persons that are being hurt by the gambling sector until I started interacting with the department that I worked for, the responsible gaming department. It took me a very long time to actually realize that there are people out there that were being hurt by gambling, that desperately need help, and they couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah.
So gambling in Uganda, for example, harm, if you had a problem of addiction to gaming, you can't, and that's not just Uganda, that's most places in Africa, you might not be able to actually access a professional who could give you that kind of assistance. But let alone, doesn't have to even be a professional, to get someone who is able to, to advise you on exactly how to deal with that kind of thing. That's an area which is underdeveloped. I would say it's growing. There's a growing appreciation for the harm, but a lot still needs to be done. And like you said, most of the operators in the gaming sector in the different parts of Africa, it is taking them a little bit longer. They know what it is doing, what is happening, and the harm that it's the activities are causing, but I don't think they're concerning themselves with that as much. I have the companies that I'm doing consultancy for, and I can tell you that there's a very big push. So for example, the companies that I work for, before I started working with them, they were not even thinking about it. Until I started working for them, and they took me there, and I got there on condition. The two companies that I'm working with, I got there on condition that I'm coming in. Okay, fine. They took me for my tax experience, and and I said, like, I'm only coming on board if you are accepting to at least listen and consider this. I said, yeah, no problem. But then when I got there, after they got me and put me there, is when I realized the pushback, and it was after me threatening so many times, to leave, and I can't just be part of something which is promoting harm and doing nothing about it, that they started listening. I was, okay, fine. So what are you saying? Okay, what do you mean? I'm like, okay, fine. Do you understand that your activities like this? Are you looking at the harm that these activities are causing? It's like, yeah, we know, but and this, and so what do you want us to do about it? Everyone else is not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
And for sure that is the attitude, and regulation for sure is running behind the industry, and that's a very, very desperate situation if the regulation is running behind the industry practices. So most of what is in place right now is most of what the operators are putting in place is the bare minimum, responsible gaming, or we need to do some a cover up. It's like cover ups. It's not no one is doing enough. Everyone is just doing
the brackets,
just checking.
right?
Oh yeah, we registered this. We warned we put up a poster warning people that gambling can be psychologically harmful, and that's a bare minimum.
Yeah,
really, that's a bare minimum. There's so much more that they can do. But again, it's also, I guess, there needs to be a little bit more of education for not just the players, but again also the gaming companies at the same time with the regulators. For the gaming companies mostly to understand that there is no direct relationship between prevention or protection of the player and their revenues. Most of them are scared of that because they naively think that by taking away that the biggest business is coming from the people who are actually hurt. But that is very short-sighted, really. It's a very short-sighted view, and for lack of a better word, really very, very backward. No one should be thinking, no one with the foresight or who is in a business to stay, it would be thinking like that it's okay. My biggest clients are the ones who are being hurt by this gaming. So it's just a matter of time before these people fall off, and then you lose your customers if at all they are. They should be your customers. So it is a little bit short-sighted, but I don't entirely blame them. I think there's need for a little bit of education of everyone involved: the players, the operators, and the regulators.
Yeah, it is a journey, right?
Yeah.
I've been asked a couple of times, but I've also heard the questions many times, people answering the question like, are we doing enough? Is this the right is this the right way for responsible gambling? I mean, shouldn't it be better? Shouldn't we do more? Shouldn't it be in a way that no one is experiencing harm? And I think that for the past couple of years, the much has been done and much has changed. But I do not think that even if everybody who basically is conscious and have the mind at the right place would be doing efforts, I think it is just impossible to do it in a couple of years or overnight, or just eradicate this perception of letting people experience harm. So I think that the path is right. We just need to keep working on it, and eventually we will see the results coming from different areas. And
I mean, Casino Guru is already doing a lot. You're doing way more. I don't know how educated you are. I don't know how that journey started as an organization. I don't know what your motivations are, but you're doing way more, even for Africa. I mean, my association with your projects and is quite empowering to me. And because again, it's a good thing to empower people like me, because I have quite a number of people that I can speak to in different positions. So you are already doing, even not directly, you may not be operational in the jurisdictions where I come for, but by involving someone like me in your projects and, having me here, you're already doing enough or something for other jurisdictions. But for sure, there's a lot to do, and you are doing your part. And I'm very, very proud to be associated with you.
And you are doing yours, and I'm glad that we are working together in some areas.
Yeah.
And that is basically the next part that I wanted to talk about. So we work together on two projects. The one is focused on the recognition and evaluation of other companies in the online gambling industry, focused around safer gambling, but also social responsibility. So, I mean, we are both judges in the category of the most impactful social responsibility initiative and the best implementation of RG tools within Casino Guru Awards, which is our project, but not run by me. I'm basically just part of the judges. And the second project, of course, is on the self-exclusion standards, which runs as a part of the Global Self-Exclusion Initiative. And this is its particular part, driven and led by the City University of London and Professor Margaret Karen, in which you are part of the work group. You are part of the 11 individuals contributing with their experience and their background in the gambling industry. We just had another meeting within this work group. I would like to start with this one. So the goal of the project is to develop a set of best practices for self-exclusion, which could be applied internationally. As a result, that there is currently nothing as such, nothing basically unified, and almost every jurisdiction has at least a little different or way different requirements for self-exclusion. So I wanted to ask you, I have a couple of questions written down, which I will use now. So what inspired you to join this project and be part of this work group? What was what made you to say yes?
I did mention earlier that my last assignment at the regulator that I was employed with was heading the Department of Responsible Gaming. And it was during my interaction with responsible gaming, because the mandate of that department was, mitigating the harm of the gambling sector, to say the least, responsible gaming, and the promotion of, responsible gaming practices and all that. But again, during my time that, because also we collected a lot of statistics on the harm. We created infrastructure in place that where we were interacting with the gamblers themselves, and a lot of groundbreaking positions at the time. and we were able to look at the numbers. It was my first time that I got to actually interact with the harm that it was causing. And to say the least, I was taken back.
Mm-hmm.
I was very disturbed. I saw a lot of things happen, some of the things that potentially really, really depressing. I saw families that had broken. I saw suicides. I tell you, there's during the time, and I was only in this department for 2 years, but during that time we registered 6 suicides.
Wow.
Of people that, very young people. Very, very brutal. That is when I actually got to appreciate the actual harm of gambling. I, just like so many people, did not think that it was as harmful or as addictive, as harmful, because it's the harm that comes after the addiction. I did not think that it was as harmful as it actually I was able to interact with. So when there's only so much I could do, as an employee of an organization like that. But what I did is, at the time when I was there, I did put a national framework for responsible gaming in Uganda, and I think it is being still implemented. But again, because of the hurt and the harm that I saw that the sector causes, and I was part of it, a part of me kept again blaming myself, because, like I said, my mindset, being on the other side of the regulator, was borderline promotion. I felt like I was, for the longest time, I felt like I was part of the promoting this vice. I don't want to say it was guilt, but again, it was like an awakening for me. It is when I actually woke up and realized that my friends, or the gaming operators, my friends or my partners or our partners as a gaming board, were actually causing damage that we were not taking responsibility for out there. So when I left the gaming board, I felt a need to continue being a part of at least the solution for the harm that was. So when Casino Guru came knocking, it was a perfect opportunity. And like I said, I'm really, really proud to be associated. I talk about the works that are being done and so much that I'm learning, because, with my association with the Casino Guru has given me an opportunity to work with very many like-minded people who are doing same work in different places. I am learning about all the things that are being done in other places and how different things can be addressed and can be done. And I carry those messages back home, those lessons back home, and I take them. Sometimes I've gone back home, and for example, the last time we were in Barcelona, when I got back home, I called the CEO of the gaming board, who happens to me, is a friend. I called him and told him, I have to meet with you. He's like, hey, what's happening? I think I was in Barcelona. I need to meet with you and tell you about what I saw. And it was talking about all the things that I think they need to do that I know they're not doing. So it, for me, is something that they cause very close to home, and the opportunity to work with them, I just took it on from there. So that's my history with it.
Thank you for your honesty in this, and I'm glad you've taken like the broader part in answering this question. I think that the group is lucky to have you as well, because one of the aspects which I am convinced will contribute to the overall impact of the project is to have the diverse representation of experience and expertise as well. And with your experience and expertise, and also with your perception and with your understanding of the market, especially how you explain it right now, this is the secret sauce which I think the project can very benefit from. And given the fact that this was the second time that we've met in person as part of the project, we've met even before as part of the awards, I can really feel that every person, every member of that work group, it is contributing to the work, not only with those two, the expertise and experience, but also with this perception, with this sort of like a little bit of a soul, which is part of it. And it really brings me joy.
Yeah.
It really brings me joy. It is not an easy task of what we do and we have encountered some challenges. So what would you say are the key challenges for a project like this? Perhaps not only connected with the self-exclusion, but what we are really trying to do is to create some sort of a standardization, something that would have the ability to be used in a broader environment internationally. So what do you think are the key challenges in a project or in a work like that?
For like any groundbreaking projects, especially pilots like the one that Casino Guru has embarked on, usually the I would expect that one of the biggest challenges is going to be the preconceived or the pre-made boundaries of the laws that are in different places. Because you see, standards have to be implemented or adopted according to an existing legal framework. Now, when you say international standards, you will realize that that is actually a very, very relative statement. Because by putting in place any standard, it is there's no such a thing as international law in the different jurisdictions.
Yeah.
When you actually get down to the real things,
especially for online gambling, right?
Yes. So I think one of the challenges that we might want to think about is exactly how we are going to have the standards adopted as but they probably will be adopted very widely, because I know we're putting in very good work and the progress looks like we're encompassing with everything that we know about most places, but it may not be universal. So that is the challenge that I'm anticipating, the different regulatory confines, that I expect that will be a little bit different. I had expected that there will be pushback from the gaming sector, from the gambling operators, but probably that is going to be jurisdictional. Standards come with implementation challenges. Yeah, they naturally come with the expense of implementation, both on the operators and the regulators. So there's nothing that we're going to put in place that is just going to be adopted and taken on wholesome. And so both the regulators, they need to there's going to be a cost of appreciation or education, and then enforcement, amendment of the laws to be able to do that, and that comes at a cost. But again, for some of the regions of the jurisdictions, there's going to be adoption by the operators, redevelopment or advancement of their softwares and all these other existing infrastructure. So I think that's also going to be a challenge, the transition. Yeah. So that is the pushback that I was talking about. So I will expect that there will be a little bit of pushback, but eventually I know for sure that it is a good thing. It's not rocket science that someone will look at these standards and understand exactly where we are moving or where we want to move a thing toward. So eventually I expect that those anticipated barriers will be, circumvented.
It seems or it sounds quite similar as it is with the industry research. I mean, like, there is a lot of really brilliant research around the industry, but if you think about it, not the big portion of it is being directly implemented or required in some jurisdictions. So there are individual companies or individual operators which are taking something out of the research and implementing it directly. And my hope for this project would be quite similar, that other stakeholders in the industry will take the stuff which makes the most sense to them. I cannot really imagine that someone would be embracing it fully, even though it would be awesome, right?
Yeah.
But to have this kind of a manual in which individual stakeholders can take a look at, they can consider it, and more importantly, they would be able to see what the process was.
Yeah.
How it was concluded, who has been involved, and what is the evidence behind it.
Yeah.
And it will be a journey, of course, as part of it as well. So I guess let's hope for the best.
Yeah.
I think that we are doing, or the amount of work we all are putting in it, it's, there is this, basically the Stoic statement that you cannot really influence the results. No. What you can influence is the amount of energy and the work and the dedication you put in.
Yeah.
And I think that we are excelling in this part, at least doing our best. Yeah. So it's somehow crazy to say, but the result is out of our hands.
Yeah.
But
we are doing everything. I think everything really is being done. The team was composed very, very comprehensively. The association with people like Dr. Margaret, it's really, it can't get better than that. She understands that. She understands the subject matter, and if there's anyone to do, to be part of this project, it's everyone who is part of it. So, like you said again, with the Stoic statement, we are doing everything we can. We can't influence the results, but I see no reason why every objective of this project won't be achieved.
It's on one side it's like doing all we could, and on the other side it's still the motivation that perhaps there is a little more that we could do. But as we've talked at the beginning, like there is only a certain scope or only a certain amount of work that you can do. So. Yeah. All right, moving forward to the Casino Guru Awards project. I don't want to talk much about it, but the one of the things that are typical for this awards is a very comprehensive judging process, which puts emphasis on, or better say, which creates a lot of work. Yeah. On the side of the judges, but also on the side of the companies that are being nominated or nominate themselves. Yeah. So, what is your understanding, or how do you consider the operators perceive this comprehensive process of the evaluation? So, what would you say are their perception of it when they are putting the nominations together and basically attending the calls? Do you think that is something that they see as a challenge or as an opportunity, really having the experience for already 2, I want to say annuals, but basically we've been doing this for the second time now, and looking into those judges, and also have the experience and saw them having the presentation and trying to convince us, right?
I have no doubt that the operators, I don't find it quite challenging, because I see. So basically, maybe if I could do a small background, just in case anyone listening to us doesn't understand the process. After we have the list of companies that are nominated, they make their presentations, quite comprehensive presentations of what they're doing, about the different, award categories. And then we meet as judges, and we get to actually interact with these people, further interrogate them, and before we make our decisions. So it's quite a lengthy process of making a decision. So we don't just go with what the companies are telling us. We do research about these very same companies or these entities that have been nominated, and then we actually get to interact with the entities and interrogate them further. Maybe not interrogate them, but prod a little bit further to understand.
Perhaps not completely.
It is not just literature. It is not.
Some questions may be a little intrusive or not completely comfortable.
And I can tell you firsthand that from interacting with the nominees of these companies, you can tell that it is something that is very personal. It is something that is very important to these operators, and they put their best people, their best everything at making sure that they appeal to the judging process and to the judges, and that at the end of the day they come out, as the winners of it all. So it is quite a process, and I think that it's most of the operators, they really, they take it very seriously. Yeah.
We are actually running out of time
Already?
Yes, right. I mean, the time is flowing. But I wanted to get at least, to talk for a few minutes about about you. And the first question, which I kind of thought about, what is your personal relation to gambling? Do you ever place a bet?
Yes, I have. Yes, I do. I do, but it is. I would say it is not something that, with hindsight, I never got to appreciate it as anything more than entertainment. I do have other passions, things that I'm more passionate about. So when I rank the kind of things that I entertain, I do interact with gambling as a form of entertainment, purely entertainment. But it ranks quite low in my entertainment. So when I'm out of all the things that I enjoy to do, sometimes I do. That is my personal relationship with it. It's not something that I've enjoyed. I've found participating in it as as a punter or as a gambler. I've not quite enjoyed it as much, but I do occasionally. I have accounts, different accounts. Even as a regulator, working with compliance, it was a requirement that everyone, you should have an account at the very least to understand how these things work and all that. So we just for that purpose and a little bit of entertainment when I deem it fit, I don't mind going to a casino once in a while and placing a bet, trying my luck and all that. But it is not something that I particularly enjoy. Yeah,
it's similar for me. There are other entertainments which are way more entertaining than that. But there are these occasions, especially when it comes to sports betting during the hockey championship, because ice hockey is very popular here in Slovakia. Okay. So I would place a bet and then watch the game with my friends, and it brings a little bit more salt or sugar perhaps. Talking about traveling. You travel a lot, right? As a part of your work, even here in Bratislava. Even though, as far as I know, Uganda is in the same time zone as Slovakia is, right?
No.
Or
actually, it's very close, because right now I think it's just 2 hours behind.
2 hours?
Usually, 2 hours, yes. So here is 2 hours behind Uganda. So Uganda is 2 hours ahead of us, but usually it's just 1 hour. Yeah.
It's only 1 hour. It's way from the south to the north, right?
Yeah.
But what would be your a favorite destination, or where would you go for a leisure or with a family to a vacation? The destination of your choice.
Okay. For my wife and kids, they have their own destination. My kids have things they like, and my wife also seems to have things that she likes. I have things that I like, so we're a very divided family in terms of destination. But we do,
right?
we do, whenever we are able to, we've quite enjoyed, America, because again of especially in the summer, Florida area where, the weather is fair to us. Europe we do have family here in Europe, but only a few times when we come here, we find the weather a little bit disturbing. So the European summer is not aligned with our holiday seasons in Uganda. So most of the time when it is summer here, the kids are going to school in Africa or in Uganda. When it is holidays in Uganda, the long holiday the Christmas holidays. It's winter here, so we can't come here. So we've ended up all agreeing that America might do us better. So usually that's how I'd say it is.
Compromise, right?
Yes, that's a compromise now. Yeah, so that's how we've ended up in America. Although personally, I love Europe, and I would say Germany is a place that I like. Yeah.
Fine. Since we are really running out of time, I have one last question, a cheesy one, if you will allow me. So, if you would be able to pick a person, historical or current, sport, whatever, to have a dinner with, who would it be?
And this is not political at all. I'm not a politician, but I find I'm not political at all. But I find if I was to choose that person, I think it would be the president of my country. Mostly because he's an old man. I tend to find him intelligent and with a lot of knowledge and all that. Even though there's a mismatch between what he says and what he does sometimes, or I have a feeling that I would have so many questions. I have quite a number of questions that I would want to put to him and suggestions to him, because I see a lot of things that I would expect for him to be thinking about that I sometimes feel that he doesn't think about. So, but again, I've also found him from. If at all you've interacted with him, he's a gentleman, because he's a bit known in Africa, but not so much in Europe. He's a gentleman called Museveni, Yoweri Museveni. That's the person I would choose, frankly speaking. I mean, there's so many great people, but I would choose him particularly because I feel like there's some explanations he owes me.
I like this answer very much. Because I think that most of the people would answer with the person to whom they look up to, basically because they will be meeting their star or a hero and don't really know what they will be
I do look up to him.
Talking with them.
I do look up to him, actually. But I feel like, looking up to someone doesn't mean you agree with everything he is or he does.
Yes. The reason that you would want to ask questions and perhaps go with the suggestions and trying to open some areas to him which he might not consider. I think it's a very good reason.
I would want to sit down with someone who, I would hate it to be a lecture, because if I wanted to be a lecture, then I would read a book maybe. I would want to sit with someone who, we can interact. But also, with the benefit of knowledge and experience, he knows quite a bit, or at least I perceive him as such. He's my dad's age, and so I think it would be a conversation.
Perfect.
Not a lecture, yes.
Fine. James, thank you very much.
Thank you, Shimon.
It was a real pleasure talking with you.
Thank
you. The whole time I didn't really had any issues with what I'm supposed to say for this being a pilot. I don't really know how to end this, so I will just say thank you.
Thank you for having me, Shimon, and thank you really for the opportunity and having me. Thank you.
Great, thanks.